Hello and welcome to the Attorney Post, where we give you the inside scoop with top attorneys in their field. And now, here's our host, Justin West.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Attorney Post. As always, I am your host, Justin West, and we're going to be diving into some of the various facets of the law that, people always have questions about, especially when it comes to dealing with criminal law. I have lots of people always wanting me to interview criminal attorneys. They find the avenue, the area fascinating. I am joined today with Shannon Locke, who runs the Locke Law Group, Locke Law Firm, which is the firm that bears his name. Shannon, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Excellent. Well, Shannon was kind enough to meet with me in the midst of time between Christmas and New Year, which is why you guys saw in the last video as well. I am still at my father-in-law's, still at the wooden cabin with the, not so wonderful Pennsylvania internet, rural Pennsylvania internet. So there's a chance this will be a little choppy of an interview, but hopefully everything will work just fine. And if it is choppy, maybe I can edit and post. We'll see. Good luck for you guys, right? Well, anyway, I'm joined with Shannon, and we're going to jump over really quickly here, as always, and take a look at his website. I've got to figure this out because I'm doing this on my laptop, as you guys have heard me say last time. It's a well-oiled machine. There we go. Shannon runs the Locke Law Group. You can find him online at thelockelawgroup.com. Very easy to remember. That is Locke with an E, L-O-C-K-E. Thelockelawgroup.com. As always, we will have a link in the description down below. Shannon does all sorts of stuff, mostly criminal defense. It looks like they also have a family law section as well, and they are down in Texas. So we're going to be diving into all of the stuff that he does. You can also call his office if you need an attorney that focuses on the areas that he works in. You can find him at 210-361-3113. That's 210-361-3113. Interestingly, when I was a kid, our phone number growing up was 3113 at the end as well. So that's oddly familiar. As always, we'll have a link to his information, the phone number, and everything else down below. You can see he works with Javier and Jennifer, who has the same last name. Is that his wife? Is that his sister? Is that his sister-in-law? We'll find out maybe in a little bit. Before we do that, we're going to jump over and read from our sponsors. As always, our first sponsor at the top of the hour is nationalerc.org. You may have noticed the world recently went through a pandemic, and many businesses were forced to shut down, had reduced hours, supply chain interruptions, and ultimately suffered from reduced revenue in 2020 and 2021. What you may not know is that Congress recently passed the CARES Act that allocated over $400 billion in stimulus funds for small businesses that never needs to be paid back. It's not a loan like the PPP or Paycheck Protection Program. It is functionally free money. It's a retroactive tax credit, actually, for your business that can be spent in whatever way you think makes the most sense. Right now, nationalerc.org is helping small businesses get the maximum amount of money back that they can. You can calculate and see how much you can get back by visiting nationalerc.org. The average small business they work with gets back over $200,000 to invest back in their business that never needs to be repaid. They've helped over 9,000 businesses get funded. They've helped them recover over $1.3 billion in refunds as well. And again, there's never any fee unless they secure funding for you. That is nationalerc.org. Our second sponsor at the top of the hour is Groove Funnels, or groove.cm. Do you love spending $5,000 to $10,000 to build a brand new website? Do you love paying monthly bills of hundreds and hundreds of dollars to host a platform that lets you sell products to your potential customers or clients? Then by all means, keep doing whatever it is you're doing. But if you're like me, you hate that stuff. And that's why I personally recommend Groove Pages, the all-new, all-in-one funnel website sales platform from internet marketing legend Mike Filsaime. Visit theattorneypost.com/groove and sign up for free to build a complete website at no cost. Really, truly, no cost, no credit card required. You can build, actually, I believe, up to 3 fully functioning websites at theattorneypost.com/groove. They have a huge list of apps for the platform that turns into a webinar platform, sales platform, website, blog, etc., as well as an affiliate platform to promote your products or services. Almost anything you can imagine, you can build with Groove Funnels. Simply visit theattorneypost.com/groove to get started today. And yes, again, it is free, no credit card required. Alrighty, so we're going to jump back over here. And again, I am joined by Shannon. So again, Shannon, thank you for joining me today. And thank you for putting up with some of the weird technical issues. We've got some really dark lighting here as well. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's, there we go. If it's the email or the email, the Zoom or the internet or what it is, but that's okay. You guys know what I look like anyway, so I'm not the star of this show. Shannon is A highly regarded, board certified criminal defense attorney. He's established himself as a leading legal advocate in San Antonio, Texas, over the course of a 15-year career. He places his clients' needs at the core of his practice, skillfully handling a broad spectrum of criminal cases, from serious offenses like murder and aggravated assault to DWI and domestic violence. His journey began as an attorney. I cannot read and I cannot talk today. I am so sorry. Shannon's journey to becoming an attorney included 3 years in the corporate world, where he pursued before he pursued a Juris Doctor from the University of Arizona. His legal career began as a prosecutor, where he served in the Pima County Attorney's Office, prosecuting a wide range of cases, including first-degree murder trials. He later joined the Bexar County District Attorney's Office, and I learned from Shannon that it looks like Bexar, but it's pronounced Bear. He joined the Bexar County District Attorney's Office, focusing on white-collar crimes. As a board-certified attorney, Shannon combines his diverse legal backgrounds with a dedication to his clients, consistently seeking the best possible outcomes through diligent trial work and case dismissal strategies. That was a mouthful, and clearly my mouth is not warmed up, even though it's midday today, but that's life. However, question number one, as always, Shannon, I'm sure I missed a lot. So the first question to you is, what did I miss, and what do you want our listeners to know about you?
It was interesting becoming a criminal defense attorney. I really enjoy being a criminal defense attorney. It's one of my favorite things, actually. It's the kind of practice that requires a lot of meeting new people and experiencing new fact scenarios all the time, coming up with strategies. You're always strategizing and working with your clients. So that's really at the top end is how we focus on clients, how we make their story the focus of what we try to do to get them their best possible result. So in the criminal defense arena, what we're looking at, everybody in criminal defense wants to minimize the consequences for their clients. That should be the goal of the representation. And so, as you're talking about that, I was thinking back to myself, how it was that I started out as a prosecutor and how much I needed to learn to become a good criminal defense attorney. And when I was a fairly decent prosecutor, and I thought that all the experience was just easily translatable, and frankly, it wasn't. You really do need to make sure that you are strategizing than when you are working as a prosecutor.
Okay, you cut out for 1 second there. I don't know if that was on my end or your end. It said
I didn't see.
You said something about strategizing, and then all of a sudden your mic went dead. That's okay. Just repeat the last sentence or two you said.
Sure. So when you're a prosecutor, being a defense attorney is a different level of strategy, and it doesn't necessarily translate. You have to have a substantial amount of experience as a criminal defense attorney. It doesn't just work to come over from the prosecutorial side and everything translates over to the defense side, even though the law is the same. The goals are completely different, obviously, and the strategy that you have to use is totally different. And so that takes a lot of experience and a lot of learning.
Gotcha. So obviously I know a fair amount of what you do. I've looked at your website. We've had a couple of discussions before this as well. But if I didn't know anything about you, and you and I were on an elevator for 30 seconds or so, and I said, what do you do? Give me your pitch, Shannon. Tell me specifically, who does your firm help, and why do people choose the Locke Law Group?
So what we do is we have what I'd consider a high value, high quality law firm. What we do, we're not the most expensive guys in town. We work with people who are sometimes on a budget, and we still provide them very high quality criminal representation and family law representation. And so we're not high volume. We don't have hundreds of clients. We try to treat each case individually, and that's really what you need. The criminal justice system is a mass production system. Its goal is to get you into the system so you are charged with a crime and then put on probation, deferred adjudication, or go to prison. That's the system's goal. And what we try to do is we try to create a wrinkle so that you get off of that track and onto a different track where you can avoid one of those three consequences. And that's really really what we do on the criminal side. On the family side, we give very personal attention, and those guys are always focusing on their clients and trying to do the very best for them. And it is my wife. She runs the family law section, and she, in my opinion, is just about the best family law lawyer in San Antonio. She does an excellent job getting either mediated settlements worked out or getting visitation for people's kids. So if you had 30 seconds, what I'd tell you is that all the problems of the world end up at our doorstep, criminal law and family law. And so what we have is we have this ability to absorb a lot of that stress and tension that is brought to us, and work those things out so our clients get the very best possible result.
There you go. Locke Law Group, professional problem solvers.
Yeah, there you go.
So let me ask you this, Shannon. What got you into law? Were you the kid that when you were, growing up and the other kids are playing G.I. Joe, you were playing Perry Mason, or did you always know you wanted to be an attorney? And as far as that goes, what got you into criminal defense, and criminal law in general, prosecutorial,
Sure.
and then defense?
Really, it was kind of a situation where I was out in Arizona. I was working in the corporate world, not really all that happy with it, and did decide to go to law school. It wasn't something that I'd always wanted to do. I kind of wanted to be a novelist as a little, for a little while, or a writer, but that didn't really work out for me. That's true. Although law does the exact same part of the brain that writing does, so I don't think that you could actually, I know there are some famous writers who are also lawyers, but I don't believe that they're actually lawyers also. I can see that they're writers, and I believe they have legal experience, but I don't think that they really write and practice law. I don't think you can do it, because the same part of my brain that I'm using to come up with arguments is the exact same part of my brain that I'd use to come up with stories, and it's very difficult to have that much capacity.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was in Tucson, Arizona. I was in the corporate world. I was actually in Phoenix, Arizona, in the corporate world, and not very happy with it. And took the LSAT. I looked at it, and we had two of the best law schools in the country in Arizona, and so I got into the University of Arizona, Arizona State, and chose to go to the University of Arizona, and the rest is pretty much history. What got me so I got a clerking job at the Pima County Attorney's Office out in Tucson, and at that clerking job, I got into and figured out that being a trial attorney really was a good fit for me. I enjoyed trial work quite a bit, and my wife at the time was from San Antonio. She wanted to move back. That's how I ended up here. So that's kind of the story behind that. But certainly was trial work. Was introduced to that as a prosecutor, and then went over to the criminal defense side after working at the Bexar County Attorney's Office District Attorney's Office for a little while.
Gotcha. So very, very important question. Who's your favorite author? As somebody who at least has aspired to be a writer, what writers do you really enjoy?
I really like Salman Rushdie is my go-to author. Yeah.
Okay.
So he magic realism and all that stuff. He's a really interesting guy. He was attacked. My family and I, we always go to Chautauqua, New York. It's an institute where they bring in authors and writers, and they speak and they give speeches and do classes and things like that. And he was actually attacked 2 weeks after I was there, and attacked, and they took out his eye, and he was in the hospital for a little. It was tragic.
Yeah.
But Salman Rushdie, he's kind of a personal hero, somebody who facing down religious fanaticism fearlessly, and at the same time conveying a message that it was just very impressive, and somebody who's personally courageous, and has used that personal courage to create some pretty incredible works of fiction. So he's definitely my favorite author for sure.
What's interesting is I'm familiar with the Satanic Verses, his critique of
Right.
but I honestly never really considered him as an actual writer. I'm going to Google it after this conversation because I'm actually kind of curious to see the types of stories that he writes, because I never.
So it's like his worst book.
Yeah.
it may be a little sacrilegious, but sacrilegious to say this, but Satanic Verses was just not his best work. His other stuff that he does, Shalimar the Clown, I think is just absolutely one of the best pieces of literary fiction that you could ever have. So yeah, it's definitely worth reading and checking into.
I will add him maybe. Well, we're driving. We've got a 19-hour drive in front of us back home eventually after our trip here. I might have to add him to my my Audible queue. We'll see.
Yeah,
I
do
can
it. Shalimar the Clown would absorb the entire trip.
Shalimar the Clown. I will put that
Mhm.
down right now. I don't know if you guys are into reading books or listening to books, but if you're looking for something new and you've never experienced it, maybe it's worth a try. So I'm taking notes right now. Hang on just a second so I don't forget that. There we go. All right, so let's talk more about your actual law practice.
Sure.
You've been doing this for a while. You've got a lot of experience, and you're board certified.
Yeah.
What does board certification mean for our listeners who maybe don't know what that means, and why is that important?
So when you're, if you think of the legal profession like the medical profession, okay, and the kind of the legal profession is kind of the forgotten. The medical profession is very much more scientific than the legal profession is, uh, but they have specialties. So if you have a general problem, you go to your general practitioner, and then they usually refer you to somebody who gives you more specific advice. When you are board certified, you are allowed to tell people that you are specializing in that area of law. So I'm board certified in Texas criminal law, and so I can tell people that I specialize in that. What that means is that I had to get qualified to take the exam. So there's a test that goes with it. And to take it, you have to have a certain number of trials, a certain number of contested hearings, a certain number of different levels of experience so that you can take the test. Then you have to take the test. You have to pass the test. It's an essay test and and multiple choice. And so I did all of those things for a little while. As the youngest board certified criminal defense attorney, but I'm no longer the youngest board certified criminal defense attorney. But for a little while I was, and
Still
now
very impressive.
I guess at the time. So now I'm a board certified criminal defense attorney.
Oh, there you go. Awesome. So, in your experience, I'm sure you've had, I'm sure you've had wins and losses. Everyone does. And I'm a firm believer that, nobody likes to fail, but I think failure is the best teacher quite often. So, can you tell my listeners, Shannon, about a time in your practice of law that you would consider a failure? Share as much as you're able to share, obviously. But what did you learn from that? How do you carry that forward to make sure you're always giving the best care and attention to your clients?
Yeah. So actually, it was an idea that was jogged. Going back to saying that when you're a prosecutor, you think that everything translates to being a defense attorney, and it doesn't really. And the reason it doesn't is because everything is different on the criminal defense side. When I was a prosecutor, I learned the office policies, and I learned that things were supposed to go according to plan. And when I became a criminal defense attorney, I got a case, and I was like, okay, this is what the plan would be for this case as a prosecutor. I told my client what I expected would happen, and he didn't like that answer. And he didn't like that answer because it was the answer that a prosecutor would give him. It would, he was going to have to accept this deal. He was going to have to be on deferred adjudication for this offense. And I was explaining that to him, and he didn't like that. He wanted a different result, obviously. And so he fired me and hired somebody else. And that person ended up getting the case dismissed. And I looked at that and I was like, how did that happen? And so what I took from that was that as a defense attorney, okay, your job is not to let things go according to plan. Okay. In fact, the plan, okay, is necessarily bad for your guy. Okay.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do is they're trying to either exact punishment, they're trying to exact permanent consequences, they're trying to do things to him so that he cannot live the life that he was living before this happened. And uh, so your job is to figure out and to use time to figure out what your client's goal is, and then try to come as close as you possibly can to achieving that goal for them. And that is not necessarily, while finding out what the state's plan is important because you need to know what they want, obviously, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's what your client wants, and it's not necessarily to mean what the result should be. And so you need to take that with a grain of salt, and you have to, with your experience, sort of use time to slow things down so that maybe things don't go completely according to plan.
That's such an interesting philosophy on how the whole process works. You said something earlier. You said your first job is just to create a wrinkle that kind of disrupts the flow of where the state wants it to go or whatever.
Right.
I think that's an absolutely fascinating concept. I've never heard anybody explain it quite like that before.
Yeah. So if you think about it, we have, thousands of people right now. I think there are about 8,000 people with warrants in Bexar County. Okay. And we have more people incarcerated in the United States of America by percentage than they have in communist China. Okay. So we live in this, and I've seen studies comparing our prison system to the Gulag system, and actually we're much more efficient at incarcerating and keeping people under some level of supervision in the United States than they were even in Soviet Russia at its worst time. Now, obviously, Soviet Russia, the consequences are far worse than ours, but as far as taking away liberty, our criminal justice system is very good at taking away people's liberty. So what you need to do as a criminal defense attorney is you need to take that one person who is your client and take them out of that mass production system and sort of find a way to make them special. Okay, and that's your job, in my opinion. It's your job to make them special, and everybody has something like that. When I was a kid, I used to watch this show, and this guy would take a dart, he'd throw the dart at the map, and then they would go to that town, and then they would go to the phone book and they'd pick a name out of the phone book, and then they would do a story about that person and say, look, everybody has a story. Okay. So as a criminal defense attorney, what your job is to figure out what that person's story is in the light most favorable to them, and then present that to the prosecutor to get them off of that mass production track and get them some special treatment. Sometimes that special treatment means they won't go to prison, they'll get on probation. Sometimes it means they won't be on probation, they'll get deferred adjudication. Sometimes it means the case will be dismissed when it was going to be one of those other three bad options. But that's your job. And so, as a good trick, and this is a great trick that I've learned, is that when you look at a case, you ask yourself, what's different about this case? What makes this case a little bit weird? Okay. And if you can find that weird thing, sometimes there's not one, but when you can find that weird thing, if you use it, okay, will be the thing that gets your clients some special treatment in a good way. So it's an idea. It's a thought.
That's a really different way of viewing it. It does feel a little depressing to view it as just this big monolithic system that is, it's there to process you. I guess we do want efficiencies. We do want actual criminals, especially the dangerous ones, I guess, taken off the streets. But I do fear sometimes, we are, becoming a bit of a gulag archipelago. I don't know. Do you ever? I don't want to get overly political. I try to keep my podcast as politically neutral on my side as possible. But do you ever just feel a little bit of despair about how much of a system it is, or is that a feature or is that a bug?
So it's a concern, okay, because as we figure out how the human mind works, how the human mind works, I think there's a real question about whether or not we are punishing people in a way that is just absolutely archaic. Okay, in Texas, you'll take somebody, and if they have an example that's not my example, somebody else came up with it. It's not truly unique, but you drink and you drive. That's a bad decision, right? You get home safely, okay, nothing happens. That's good. You drink and you drive, you get arrested, and you get a DWI. That's bad, but it's not the worst thing that could happen. You drink and you drive and you hit somebody and you kill them, and then you'll go to prison. Now, the only thing separating any of those three acts is your own luck. Okay, the culpable action is the same. Okay, you drink and drive and get home, you're free. Nobody will expect you to go turn yourself in at the nearest police station, say, arrest me for DWI, right? Everybody's okay with that person being safe at home, free of consequence. You drink and drive and get arrested, everybody thinks they should be on probation, right? And get a warning. But if you have the tragic outcome of drinking and driving and killing somebody, right, where you haven't done anything different than the other two people, right, people expect that you'll end up in prison. And how is that okay? All right. How and obviously the tragedy associated with killing somebody is factual. I mean that is tragic, right?
Yes.
But shouldn't our system say, okay, is there a way for us to incapacitate this person's ability to drink and drive and still contribute to society? Or, okay, and here's the alternative: we put them in a Texas prison where they will cook at a temperature of 120 degrees, okay, for years, not sure of when they'll get out, okay, completely isolated, many times spending time in solitary confinement, just in a hellish existence, right? So, what side of the argument do you want to be on? Okay, do you want to be on the side that's trying to put them in that hellish existence, right? Or do you want to be on the side that says, look, can't we solve this problem a little more creatively? Okay. So, I mean, the question is there despair? There's real, questions about, okay, this person has an alcohol problem. Why are we putting them in a cage? Okay. That doesn't make any sense. And if you ask people individually, you say, look, do you think this person with an alcohol whose true problem is an alcohol problem and maybe an alcohol and driving problem, do you really think that they should automatically just go to this cage, right? Is that okay with you? And usually the answer I would hope would be no. And yet, that is frequently the response. And so I think that's a problem. And I don't think that it's a problem that that only criminal defense can address.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's take a little step away. We were talking about, a failure and what it taught you, and I think it kind of took us down a rabbit hole, really just fascinating thought. But I'm sure you've had some great wins too. And sometimes it's really nice to think about the feather in your cap. And I'm sure you've got a lot of different things you could be very, very proud of in your career, from being at one point the youngest board certified, right? But can you let my listeners know about one or two of the things you are most proud of in your career as an attorney? And it could be a particular individual that you knew was innocent and you were able to prove they're innocent. It could be just a guy that was a family guy that was facing never seeing his children ever again, and now he gets to see them grow up or something. But I don't know what that looks like. But what are the things that you're most proud of that you've done? Give me a couple of those.
Well, we were able to the San Antonio news media kind of went a little bit. They ran some stories about how many cases we were getting dismissed. That was kind of cool. In a weird kind of way. We had one client, one of those stories was about, who was unfairly lumped into a conspiracy. The conspiracy resulted in the death of a child. It was a horrible, horrible case. And we got his case dismissed because he was improperly included in that conspiracy. That was something that we were very proud of. We got some, but I'll tell you that probably the when you have a client that trusts you and they're facing serious consequences and they listen to what your advice is, and then they make a decision that limits those consequences, that it's a hard story to tell. Like, it's not glamorous, right? So I could tell you the story about the guy that had the conspiracy, and we went through all the Facebook messages and we looked for his name and didn't find it, and we went through hundreds of thousands of pages of discovery and showed the prosecutors that they really couldn't get our guy into as part of this. That was a glamorous kind of result and made the news and all this stuff, and that was cool. But then there was another person who was looking at probably getting 80 years in prison or spending the rest of his life in prison. And he took a very hard plea because when we walked him through the case, he understood what we were saying and chose to take a very serious sentence, but one that would allow him to come out again. And that was probably one of my proudest moments, because I just knew as we were going through this case that it was just going to be an absolute disaster if took it to a jury. And when we walked him through it, the level of confidence that he had in me allowed him to listen to what I was saying, and the result was that he had to take a deal that probably was hard to take, and it was a very hard deal for him to take. But still, his faith in me will allow him to go see, come out again on the other side at some point. And so that was in a different way gratifying,
Yeah,
and still somber. So
I can imagine that.
kind of a strange deal.
You've kind of pointed out in some sense, I don't know if I want to say the absurdity of the system, but it does feel again sometimes like an inhuman machine, and I'm sure it's filled with moments of catch 22isms, right? Where you're just like, I don't know why this is working out this way, but there's no logic way around this. Can you share with my listeners maybe one of the most absurd situations that you've come up against or found yourself in the process of practicing criminal law?
Well, I mean, it's just like, we're constantly dealing with all these absurd situations that it's hard to like quantify one of them. So I was like, geez, I'm not sure that I could even think of. Everything seems so absurd that I don't know that I can come up with one. So I'm not sure exactly what to say about that. And I'm kind of drawing a blank on that, frankly. Uh,
We can come back to that one if
yeah.
one pops out in your head and you're like, oh, you know what? Feel free to bring it back up. It's totally fine. Well, let me shift gears a little bit then, and maybe this will even jog your memory at the same time. Who knows? Um, I have to assume at times doing criminal defense has to be emotionally challenging. I mean, it is intense work. People's lives are on the line. You're dealing with the fallout of some sort of a bad situation always. How do you manage the emotional toll it takes on you, and how do you also help your clients through that?
And that really is probably the toughest part of the job, um, especially when you're dealing with probably our most common cases is very serious violent offense, and I'll tell you that the thing about violence is that it is something that everybody is capable of, and then when you reflect on it, it's something that you can take an entire life and ruin it over a moment's decision. Okay. And then that moment passes, and our criminal justice system is such that years sometimes pass, and then consequences are imposed. And you're dealing with a person who's looking back on these consequences for that moment that is, no longer there. Okay.
Yeah,
And that is certainly the hardest part of the job. And I guess going back to the absurd, that is the absurd part of it is that you can take somebody and, day in and day out, they're doing their job. They're being with their family. They're doing what they're supposed to do. And then in a moment, they're put in a situation where they have to make a decision. They make the wrong decision and they get arrested for it. And you have somebody on one side who's a victim of that, and who's experiencing that. And you have somebody on the other side who's experiencing the consequences. And it is tragic. And so how do you absorb that as the criminal defense attorney? You're trying to tell the story, and the question that always haunts me is, okay, have I told the story sufficiently? Okay, have I taken all of this individual's personality and shown that to the judge in a way that moment's decision doesn't really reveal. And so that's kind of that's definitely what haunts me. How do you handle that? You have to realize that everybody plays their role. Okay.
yeah,
And you have to take some comfort in that. Uh, and kind of you have to understand your role. Okay. And so as an advocate, your job is to advocate vigorously for your guy, for your client. Uh, and the state's job is to try to do justice, and they're supposed to do what's right. Okay. And often I get frustrated because they don't see things the way I do. And then the judge has to call the decision. And then you have to take comfort in either you did your part of the job, uh, and if you did, then everything else is up to everyone else. So, I had a case where I had a young guy, and we had a very high cap, and probably one of the things that you asked me about my failures, probably the better answer would have been talking about this kid's case. We took this high cap and we went in front of a judge that we probably shouldn't have gone in front of, and she hit the cap and sent him away for a long, long time. And I'm not sure that a jury would have done the same thing had we been able to present everything to the jury. I believed that this judge would really listen to our side of the story, and she just didn't. And that haunted me for a long time, bothered me. Uh, but I asked myself, look, as I was making, Klein decided to take the deal. He presented it to him, and as I did that and I dissected it, it was really, it became clear to me that the fault really was, not necessarily with me, but certainly with the system that allowed it all to happen. And then I did do my best for him. But certainly anybody that definitely leaves a mark on you, and it's not something that you really get over necessarily. I mean, you do get a little scarred up, and that happens. So I'm not sure that you necessarily completely get over it, and I'm not sure you necessarily should. Okay, like
Right.
you're in this job, and if you take it lightly, it's probably not the right job for you, because there's really really tragic things that can happen sometimes, and you have to understand that. And if you don't understand it, then you probably got something else wrong with you. And you've got to understand that sometimes things don't go your way, and it's tough.
Gotcha. No,
Yeah.
that's good advice. And I mean, that almost is, the absurdity of the system too, a little bit. So, um, if somebody finds himself facing criminal charges, I mean, hopefully, my dear listeners, none of you find yourself in this position, but you never know. Life happens. I just heard a story about a family that got into a row over Christmas presents in Florida 2 days ago, and somebody got shot, and a couple of brothers are going to prison over who had the most presents or something. I didn't read the whole story, but that was the gist of it, if I understood correctly. But like, if somebody finds himself, especially in San Antonio, let's just say, facing criminal charges, what steps should they take? At what point are you, when do they call an attorney? When do they get a hold of you? What steps can they do to mitigate any risk or harm, or not give up too much? Should they cooperate with the police? Should they tell their story? Should they always make sure they have their attorney present? Like what are the steps people should do to make sure they have the best chance for a favorable outcome?
So really, the faster you can call a criminal defense attorney, the better it is, and that's true 100% of the time. Really, you don't want to be handling this thing on your own for too long. And there is a point where a criminal defense attorney can no longer help you. I probably get 20 to 30 calls a year from people who've already taken pleas that want to get out of their pleas. And there's just no way for a criminal defense attorney to do that, uh, realistically. So when you realize that you're in trouble, the first thing you should do is call a criminal defense attorney, hire somebody. If you're in jail, you may want to make bond first. That's sometimes a priority, and that's understandable. Getting out of jail and then hiring a lawyer as soon as you can. But it's absolutely key. One of the reasons it's absolutely key is because a lawyer can tell your side of the story for you, and this is something that people don't understand. And I really think that it is a little bit sad. I mean, criminal defense attorneys get such a bad rap. Sometimes understandably, sometimes, but I think usually not. We usually are just most of the time trying to go to bat and trying to fight the state and the government and do the right thing. But I think that a lot of times people think, well, they're just self-promoting. They want you to call a lawyer because that benefits the lawyers. But there are actually really practical reasons to call a defense attorney before you do anything else. Uh, a defense attorney can, for instance, if you are under investigation the defense attorney can contact the detective and tell your side of the story in a way that is not used against you. So that's something that most people don't get. I had a client who went to the police station. He understood from his church that he was under investigation regarding some kids. So he goes to the police station and says, "Hey, I understand you guys want to talk to me." They say, "Sure." They leave him in the room with his file. They say, "Oh, I'll be right back." He doesn't look at the file. He's just sitting there waiting. And they come back and they say, "So you know why you're here?" And he, of course, had talked to his church members and found out that they were investigating him about this. And he said, "Yeah, I understand that you think that I've done some stuff." And so they said, "Okay," so he understood exactly. They didn't tell the backstory about how he had talked to his church members and they had alerted him that these kids were saying things. They said that he just assumed what the investigation was about because and the implication was that because he'd done it. So a criminal defense attorney could say, "Look, it's my understanding that you guys are investigating this. What do you want to know? Is there something that I could do to help you all out to figure out that this person isn't doing or didn't do what you think he did?" And they can work with the detective in that way. But if you do it, everything that you say is going to be used against you. And the detective has no obligation to record your phone call, no obligation to record your statement. He's just transcribing, and he's transcribing what he wants to transcribe, not what you're actually saying necessarily. So, unfortunately, what I say sometimes is, my client would say, "Well, why don't I just talk to them?" And I say, "Okay, do you trust the least trustworthy person at the Bexar County Sheriff's Department or the San Antonio Police Department? Do you trust that person?" "Well, I have no idea." "Okay, then why would you talk to them?" "Okay, because you'd have to trust that they're recording it, trust that they're writing it down accurately, and trust that they're not going to twist anything that you say to be used against you. Do you trust them to do all that? Why would they do that? In fact, these people probably believe that you're the kind of person that hurts somebody, and they're completely in their own mind justified not giving you a fair shake. So that takes a tremendous amount of trust in people you really should not trust. Not because, and believe me, it's not because they're bad people, but they're people that have already justified opening up an investigation against you. Okay, so in their mind, they think that you probably did it. So can you trust them to do what's right by you? Is a question. So you should hire a criminal defense attorney as soon as you know you're in trouble.
That's good advice. And I've always said, in fact, it's the tagline of my show: if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. And part of knowing your rights is working with someone that can protect you and knows the law better than you know the law, and is your advocate, is on your side. So absolutely, that is I think that's crucial. If somebody is interested in talking with you, just out of curiosity, what does the process look like? Like, if they're in prison and they haven't, or they're in jail and they haven't been able to post bail yet, and they're like, "I want to talk to my lawyer." How do they go from there to talking with you and working with you? What does that process look like? And I know it's a tough question, but I'm sure people come in without a lot of funds sometime. What do you do when they've clearly got a case, or they clearly need help, but maybe they can't afford you, or what do those situations look like?
Yeah, so usually they'll call the office. Our phones are answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They call the office, describe what's going on. We set them up for an appointment. They come in. We talk about, strategy, how we're going to get the case dismissed, how we're going to negotiate with the state, what realistic outcomes are. Okay, what ideal outcomes are, what not so ideal outcomes are. We talk about all of that, and frankly, all of that is free. So you get all of that in a free consultation. That also gives us an idea about what your goals are. And so sometimes people call and just say, "Look, I just need to know how much this is going to be." And a little bit frustrated when I tell them, "Well, I can't just give you a price because I don't have one."
Yeah.
A DWI where your whole career is on the line is going to be different than a DWI where you can accept a deferred adjudication and move on with your life. So your goals drive a lot of the representation and a lot of what the charges are going to be. And so we have to take a look at all of that. then we come up with how much the fee is, and then frankly, 95% of our clients work on a payment plan, and we try to be flexible with that. And I say, look, they say how much down, and I say, listen, as a skilled negotiator, we could play this game, but it works much better if you tell me how much you could bring down. We divide the rest of the payments by 10, and then, we're going to go forward from there. And that's usually flexible enough so that even people who don't think they can afford a lawyer, usually can afford us. And so it allows us to work with a lot of people. And frankly, I don't take court appointments. I have a ton of respect for people that do public defense. I don't do that, but I do try to be flexible with my payment plans to make up for that, because in my heart, I am a criminal defense attorney. I truly believe this stuff. I don't just make money at it. And so going to bat for people against the state of Texas is something that I believe in, uh, more than just making money off of it. And so I do try to be flexible with people and try to work with them.
Gotcha. That's good to know. I think a lot of people, when they think of working with an attorney, they get really nervous because price is obviously a big thing. I know attorney hours are not cheap, obviously, but knowing that there are ways forward, and even just knowing that there's a payment plan option, the fact that they can do that,
Yeah.
maybe they don't realize that, I got to have, $10,000 for the retainer fee, and people have this concept that makes them so afraid. Maybe they want to handle it themselves because they're afraid of that cost. But of course, I would much rather spend even, $10,000 down right away than, risking 10 years of my life or longer in prison for whatever the situation may be. So that's very helpful to know.
Yeah.
Well, Shannon, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. I don't want to monopolize your whole evening, and we're going into the evening hours here, so we'll wrap this up in a minute. Before we do that, I'm going to ask you my two famous closing questions that people always like. Just to refresh your memory on those, question number one will be, if you could meet young Shannon and give him some advice, and of course, by extension, maybe somebody that's getting started in law themselves, what advice would you give, and why? And then question number two is, and I don't have it with me because I'm on vacation, but I have a magic pen. And that magic pen is able to strike laws from the books, edit laws that are on the books, or add laws to the books that are already there. If I were to loan you my magic pen and you can make one change, what change would you make, and why? And it can be a major law with sweeping ramifications that affects every single client in the United States, every single person in the United States. It could be something that just that law that makes you fill out forms in triplicate 8 times a week that just drives you nuts, right? What law would you change and why? While you percolate on that, we're going to jump over one more time and take a look at your website. Again, I am talking with Shannon Locke of the Locke Law Group. That is www.thelockelawgroup.com. Link, as always, in the description down below. 210-361-3113. That is 210-361-3113. If you are in the San Antonio area and you are facing any kind of a criminal situation or family law situation, reach out to Shannon and the Locke Law Group. We'll have all of their contact information down below in the show notes. We are going to read from our final sponsor of the day, and the final sponsor of the day is Rank with News. If there was a guaranteed way to get your law firm or business featured in major national publications like Yahoo News, Forbes, Bloomberg, and others, and see those articles rank locally, even nationally, sometimes in as little as 8 hours for major competitive keywords that people were actually searching for, what else would you need to know? Rank with News is simply the most powerful way to hit page one in under 2 weeks safely, organically, and permanently. It's functionally guaranteed SEO, or search engine optimization, on steroids, ranking quickly and sticking sometimes indefinitely. If you're tired of poor visibility for your business or your law firm, visit rankwithnews.com or rankwith.news to learn more and book a time to speak with a specialist about featuring your firm or business in major national 8-figure traffic sites that can help launch you to page one in a matter of hours and help you dominate your local marketplace. Get media exposure, rank higher in Google, build credibility, and win more customers and clients with rankwithnews.com. All right, so Shannon, you and I are able to magically time travel. We meet young Shannon maybe 15 years ago, and you're able to give yourself just a little bit of advice, other than the obvious, buy Bitcoin, hold it till 60K. Just trust me. I know you don't know what it is, but look it up. You'll figure it out. You're able to give yourself some advice. What advice would you give yourself to make your journey in law better, smoother? What are the road bumps you want to make sure you avoid?
Well, so I've always taken pride in the fact that I've made a lot. I think I've made the most of all the mistakes that I've made. So I'm not sure that I would try to correct any of the. I don't really regret uh, much of my past. I'm fortunate, really fortunate in that. But I had a really hard time in law school. My first semester, I went to a very good law school. I studied my ass off, worked as hard as I possibly could, and I got like grades that I considered very mediocre. And it was just not. And I was really emotionally devastated by that. Uh, and I frankly would tell that person not to worry about it at all. It's the best thing that could happen to you. In fact, when I'm on Twitter, I'll often say that to people is just say, look, if you get mediocre grades in law school, that's because the alternative is you can be required to chase those A's all through the 4 years or 3 years of law school, which is just a horrible existence of just academic rigor that is just memorization and just really awful. Or you could be freed up to get some really interesting experience, which I was and which I did. And so the best possible thing that could ever have happened to me was to get those terrible grades. It wasn't terrible; it was like three B's and a C, and it was like, but I was really expecting to get all A's,
Yeah.
and I got these mediocre grades, and I was like, okay, so I got a job clerking at the county attorney's office, and I, did a bankruptcy clinic, and I did some really cool stuff that helped some people, and it was neat. But I didn't, I figured, hey, I studied as hard as I possibly could. If I'd gotten two C's and two B's, it wouldn't have made any difference. So I'm just going to relax on the grades. I'm not going to study as hard, but I'm gonna trade that in for getting good experience. Uh, and that was the best thing that could have happened to me. So. I would tell a young Shannon not to worry about the grades, not to worry about your law school grades so much. That all that's going to work out, and that's turned out to be true. Uh, yeah, so I try to tell people that on when I see people very worried about their grades, try to relate that to them. You know that sometimes it's not necessarily something to be worried about.
Well, and there's always something to be said for, book smarts are one thing, but actual experience is a whole other thing. And I'd much
That's
rather
very
have
true.
somebody with real experience than somebody who knows the theory, but, has no idea what it looks like in practice. So
Yeah,
100%.
very true.
So if I gave you my magic pen, Shannon, and with this pen, again, you can strike a law from the books, you can edit a law that's on the books, or you can add a law to the books that isn't there that you'd like to be. What law would you change and why?
Well, I think that I would in federal law, it is so very easy to be part of a conspiracy. Okay. And there is very little protection. There's very little protection. So if you are in a conspiracy and you blame somebody else, that's really that is sufficient to bring that other person into the conspiracy and have them punished federally for that. And so I don't know that there's sufficient protections in that. So I might remove, and this would have a dramatic effect, but I might remove the conspiracy law from the federal books. And require everybody to be prosecuted for their own actions and not for the actions of the entire conspiracy. That is a source of a lot of injustice, in my opinion. It is a source of people who end up doing years and years in prison that don't necessarily because they're part of a group that does really terrible things, and so they're also held accountable for the actions of the entire group. And I find that to be abhorrent, and there's not good arguments to be made that are recognized by federal judges right now that allows them to get variations on that. So I think that's wrong. So especially in federal court, how the conspiracy law is used, I think I would take my magic pen and I'd delete that for sure.
Good stuff. I'm so again, I'll try to keep this as apolitical as possible. You're welcome to be as political as you want to be. I try to keep my side as apolitical as possible, but I am very aware of some pretty recent news stories over the last couple of years of groups of people being caught up in conspiracy charges, and a lot of times it's looking more like entrapment, even at a federal level. And
Mhm.
I find that very morally problematic, very frightening. Just to think that we could be coming the next the Gulag Archipelago, calling Solzhenitsyn, paging Solzhenitsyn. Well, Shannon, thank you very much again for taking the time to talk with me. We've actually been trying to have this conversation for a good long while, since like
We
September.
have.
So for my listeners, this was a conversation a long time in the making, but I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot, and I think you've had some really interesting and very keen insights I've enjoyed. I always like to let my guests have the final say. Do you have any final thoughts, parting words, or wisdom you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Well, thank you. And try to remember in our time of moral panic, okay, that everybody is an individual. Everyone has their story to tell. There are no such things as, whenever you put the word "the" in front of a group of people, you're creating a generalization that is definitely inaccurate. So there's no such thing as the anybody. People are people, and every person is an individual, and everybody deserves and is entitled to be valued as such. And regardless of your past, regardless of what you've done, your story should be told, and that is what great advocacy is, and what great criminal defense work means is that you take somebody who's ignored, who's who's essentially ostracized because they may be accused of some of the worst things that a person can do, and you look at them and you try to find what's special about them. And a good criminal defense attorney can always find it, and and present that in a way that can minimize somebody's consequences.
That's awesome. Well, I'm careful what I do and don't say because I don't want to put words in words. There's a very beautiful, even like a faith-based, how God must see us sort of a concept there, seeing the heart of a
Yeah,
person, even in the midst of them being in a bad scenario. So I think that's a wonderful way to look at it. Well,
yeah, it is.
Shannon,
It's a neat deal. It's a great profession, and I really enjoy it myself. So yeah,
that's awesome. I've always thought I don't know if I could do criminal law. Like I've always felt like it would just be such a grind, and you'd have to deal with, I'm sure at least sometimes you deal with people that would be considered the dregs of society, but you have, it sounds like, the exact mindset you would need to have in order to do it well and to thrive in doing it. And, it's seeking out the humanity and the individualness of each of those people. So I think that is that must be a gift that you have, because I don't know that everyone
thanks.
can do that. You, you're very welcome. Well, this has been the Attorney Post. Again, I've been chatting with Shannon Locke of the Locke Law Group, the eponymous group that bears both his name and his wife's name. And you can find them again online at thelockelawgroup.com. We've been talking, of course, about lots of different legal issues, and although, as always, this podcast we deal with lots of legal topics, it does not constitute legal advice. So, if you find yourself in need of having a legal issue, you should always seek the advice of a competent attorney in your area who focuses on the matters that you need help with. Obviously, if you live in the San Antonio area, and if you find yourself in a criminal situation, I think Shannon would be an amazing resource. And it sounds like you can basically contact his law firm and even start the process without even worrying about a payment. Figure out what your rights are. And you should always do that because, as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, we always do appreciate a like, a subscribe, and a share. If you're listening to this on any of the podcast repositories, of course, give us a rating, give us a review. And if you know anybody who could benefit from this information, particularly somebody facing criminal charges, maybe in the San Antonio area, please feel free to share this with them, because at the end of the day, you're only going to help them be empowered and know their rights so that they are best equipped to take care of the situations in their life. Until next time, this is Justin wishing you all a safe and happy holiday season, a bright, happy, and prosperous new year. And remember, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Thanks for listening, guys, and bye-bye.